Now, today we are honored to have just one host with us. His name is Ethan Sawyer. Ethan will be on just momentarily with his microphone on and his camera as well to be able to speak and show himself to the audience. Hello, Ethan.
Hey,
so on behalf of Navigate 2020, the event sponsors, Go to College Fairs, I'd like to send a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out and talk to a lot of people who, you know, are stuck in quarantine right now. So we really appreciate it. And without further ado, feel free to share your presentation and we can get started.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alex. Appreciate it. Hey, everybody. How's it going? I wish we could be in a giant room where there were like 2,000 of us just like, you know, hanging out, but that would be a bad idea at this point. I'm Ethan, and if you've never heard of me before, let me give you some quick fun facts. Actually, before I even do that, if you take out your phone and you scan this little QR code, it'll take you to a little place where you can get the handout for this presentation. It's got a bunch of sample essays and exercises that you can work through, and some of the ones I'll be talking about in the next few minutes. If you don't have your phone nearby, don't worry, you don't need to run and grab it. I'll give this to you at the end so you can check it out then. So here's how this session's gonna go. Basically, I'm gonna do a very short intro. I like to keep them short. I'm gonna share with you 157 resources. You thought it was just gonna be tips. Give me 157 tips, and then we'll do some Q&A. Some fast facts on me. Here are some places that I've studied, some certificates that make me legit. And I've spent basically since 2003, like a third of my life, I've spent thinking about college essays and the personal statement. This is what I love. It's what I do. I grew up as a missionary kid, moving around a bunch, and I'm a Doctor Strange fan. If I had to pick, I was thinking about this a few days ago. I was like, which Marvel? I was just trying to come up with a fun fact. I was like, who would I pick? And I think it's Doctor Strange for me, y'all. I give away a bunch of free stuff on my website. That's something I'm known for. I got a podcast. That's something I'm known for. I wrote a couple books. The one on the left, some folks have heard of. The one on the right comes out in July. And if you are a student who identifies as low income, you can get free essay and application help if you just go to collegeessayguide.com/matchsliders. We have a scholarship for low-income students. So last year we matched about 150 students. This year we want to match at least twice that, so at least 300 students. So feel free to apply. You can do that tonight. And I'm Zola's dad. Zola's over there. She's in the other room, but this is one of my favorite pictures of her. And I just do like gratuitous kid shots in every presentation, if you really knew me. The other thing you got to know about me is that I love buffets. And one of my favorite buffets, and if we were here, I'd be like, has anybody been to the Bellagio? Because it is pretty dang epic. Check this out. They got crab legs for days. They got all the desserts. They got the meats. That's a little bit of an old reference for some of y'all. I was a vegetarian when I went there, so I didn't partake in the meats. But did I mention the desserts? The reason I'm showing you all these pictures is because I love food, but also because I'm about to share with y'all 157 college essay resources, and I recommend that you see it kind of as a buffet, so you don't try to like eat everything on the buffet, because your brain will kind of melt. But just notice that it's all there, and then you can kind of come back for second helpings as you like. There are 3 things to remember when teaching, said Lola May. Know your stuff, know whom you are stuffing, and then stuff them elegantly. And that's my goal in the next 30 minutes. But careful that you don't like delve too deeply into one thing, because you could end up like this guy who actually showed up when I Googled Bellagio buffet. This was a dude who actually came up on my Google image search. All right, here are the 5 questions that I get from students all the time, and they offer the structure for this presentation, besides it being a buffet. So how do I figure out what to write about, i.e. what's the content? How do I pick a topic? Number 2, how do I structure it once I've got a topic? 3, how do I outline it? What are some tips for revising it? And how do I bring it to life? And all this will I cover in the next 29 minutes, ish. Okay, first of all, how do you figure out what to write about? Well, there are a bunch of different ways to do that. One exercise that I really love is called the essence objects exercise, which involves picking a few, like a select objects and connecting each one to some different side of you. So I happen to have an essence object on the desk, as luck would have it. I should have had someone throw it to me from off screen. But if you'll see right here, I don't know if you can see this, I'm gonna hold it up to the camera. These are like hand-painted wooden beads that were hand-painted by my, my friends and family right before my daughter's baby shower. So I sometimes cry when I talk about this, FYI. But this to me represents this like well, now it's like kind of broken, but this represents the love of my community for my daughter, even before they knew her, and represents intentionality, because I feel like I'm in a community where we do handmade cool things for each other. So that's one. Another one would be, let's see, I've got all kinds of things on my desk that represent, oh, here's a game that's all about connection. It's called Totem. It's really cool. They're not sponsoring this session, but I just played it with my family and it's really cool. And it represents games, which I wholeheartedly love and endorse. And it represents connection and finding fun ways to like get to know people better. So those are some of my essence objects. Those are two. If we were, had more time, I would give you a few more examples and I would guide you through the essence objects exercise, but we don't have to. Unfortunately, there's a handout that I'll give to you at the end. But that's one fun way to, like, in about 10 minutes, come up with some different essences, important parts of who you are. Another exercise I love, and you can Google these, by the way. If you just Google essence objects, college essay guy, you'll find it. The values exercise, and it's really simple. You basically go in here and you identify your top 10 values and you whittle it down to top 5, top 3, and if you can do it, you're number 1. I find it's a really quick way of scanning and going, what do I care about? And then you ask yourself, okay, based on the values that I've mentioned, how do those manifest themselves in my life? Because, like, let's say creativity is a top value for you. Well, if I'm a college admissions reader, I want to know what creativity looks like in your life, because that could look like a billion different things, right? So what is your, I was going to say brand of creativity, but I don't want you to think of like branding yourself. When you think creativity, what does that look like in your life? And the values exercise is a quick way of going, what are some of the things that I'd like, the sides of myself that I'd like to show? My favorite prompt, which used to be a University of California prompt, but isn't anymore, is describe the world you come from and tell us how your world has shaped your dreams and aspirations. Now, this is not a Common App prompt. You can go to the Common App and see what kind of prompts they're looking for. But to me, if you're trying to demonstrate lots of different skills, qualities, values that are going to contribute to a college campus, which, by the way, is, I think, kind of the point of the personal statement, and I'll say that again in a few minutes, I think that this prompt, describe the world you come from and how it's shaped your dreams and aspirations, is a really great way of starting to dig deep and think about what are those sides of myself that I want to show. The essence objects exercise can help you think about what is the world that I come from. And I think your values are deeply connected to your dreams and aspirations. And I'll say more about that in a few minutes. Here's the pre-work that I give to all my students. And you can, if you want, screenshot this, or you can Google these. The essence objects and values I mentioned. The 21 details exercise just involves making a random list of 21 just random facts, like autobiographical details. You never know what's going to come out of that. The 17th one could end up being your college essay topic. And then the everything I want colleges to know about me exercise is just as it sounds. You basically take a blank sheet of paper and you go to, I don't know, probably somewhere in your house. No longer, I used to say go to Starbucks or something, and you take out a pen and you just randomly fill it with all of the things that you want colleges to know about you. Not because all this stuff needs to go in your personal statement, because it's going to go somewhere in your application. And then the 5th resource, your supplemental essay tracker, is basically like a giant, awesome spreadsheet that has the schools you're applying to, the supplemental essays you need to write, the word limits, and when they're due. And the reason that you should do that is I want you to see all the work that you're going to have to do if you apply to like a bunch of schools. But have no fear. Once you sort of see all the work that you have to do, this is a little bit of, I'm just going to throw this at you. I might mention this again at the end. You can write something called a super essay, which, if you're like, what's a super essay? Super essay, college essay guy. And you'll see how you can use one topic or a few topics to connect to many different prompts. But that's beside the personal statement. Let's get back to the personal statement. When it comes to picking a topic, I like to ask 2 questions. Number 1, if a student's writing about challenges, I like to ask, is this your deepest story? Because if not, we've got another option, which I'll explain in a few minutes. And by the way, this all comes up in like the second session, the second section here. Will this topic allow me to describe a variety of, like I said, what colleges are looking for? What are the values, skills, qualities, and interests that you're going to bring with you to a college campus? And I think the second structure, which I'll get into in just a second, montage, can help you do that. So broadly speaking, let's go deep with a challenge that's fundamentally changed your life. Most students haven't had that, though. It's fine to go wide and to talk about many different sides of who you are. But of course, you're wondering, how do we do that? How do we structure the essay? So Again, my favorite prompt, describe the world you come from and how it's shaped your dreams and aspirations. I find that oftentimes students are either writing about, you're either writing about a challenge or you're not. Some students know what they want to do in the future, and some students don't. And so those map out kind of into 4 types of essays. In the type A, we've got students who have faced challenges and want to write about them, and know what they want to study and want to write about that. And then there's some percentage of students that, type B, have not faced challenges, but maybe have some idea of what they want to study, some vision for their future. And then we've got type C, student, yes, has faced challenges, but has no idea what they want to do in the future. And then type D, which is probably most students, either haven't faced challenges or don't want to write about them. And you don't know what you want to study or don't necessarily want to write about it. These are not types of students. Like, you are not a type A student or a type B student, at least not in this sense. But these are 4 different paths for your essay. And they're useful for me in explaining to you how you can structure your essay. So I mentioned narrative structure, which is great for students who are writing about challenges. And I mentioned montage structure, which is really great for students who are not writing about challenges. One difference is narrative, you're making causal connections, which is like, this thing happened to me, which caused this to happen, which led to this, and now I've become this type of person. Montage is like, let me tell you all these different things about myself, but I'm going to connect it with this theme, right? Which could be frogs, or it could be beatboxing, or it could be a career that you want to have, being a doctor. Okay, so let me give you 2 examples. A narrative structure essay, maybe a student begins by describing how they were really shy when they were a kid. And then they describe how they really needed to get over it because they had to translate for their parents, or it was really frustrating to them. And then there was this moment where they joined the debate club. And at first it was a bad idea, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to work out. But then something shifts, and they sort of start to getting more into it. And in this student's essay, she began socializing, was even elected to head several clubs. So we sort of see a change happen by the end of the essay, by the end of the story. 4 years of debate, and then she says, now I'm the kid at the whiteboard, the kid leading discussions and standing up for her beliefs. I'll share with you this essay in the PDF handout. So that's causal connections, right? I was shy, some stuff happened, and then I became less shy, right? That's kind of the arc of that story. Whereas with montage structure, a student might have all these different qualities they want to show. Curiosity. I've been working with my hands for years. I'm obsessed with details. I love math. I love connecting with and sharing with others. What does this all have to do with each other? Well, these are all qualities that are going to serve me well in my future imagined career as an endodontist, which is a dentist. And again, I'll send you that essay. So again, the difference, let me just go back. This moment led to this one, led to this one. For this essay to really work, we need to care about your challenge. Whatever the question is that you bring up at the beginning. In the beginning of this essay, we really want this girl to overcome this problem that she has, which is like, she's so shy, she can't even ask for help in many situations. This guy, we don't even need a challenge. It's just like, hey, here's some cool things about me. It's kind of fun. It's light. It goes wide. And we learn a ton about him. I want to just disabuse you of the fact that some students believe that you have to write a challenges-based essay in order to write a great essay. It's just not true, okay? There's so much possibility that's there for you if you write using a montage structure. And I'll give you some more ideas for that in a few minutes in the next section. I think a great essay either goes deep, discussing one challenge or a series of challenges that fundamentally changed you. And if you don't have that, go wide. Talk about lots of different parts of you. Narrative structure goes deep, montage structure can go wide, okay? Depth, and if you really advance and you spend a lot of time working on this, I think you can do both. So I don't think these are mutually exclusive. All right, so how do we outline the essay? Decide on the big chunks. I got my friend Chunk here from Goonies. You remember this guy? I don't know if any of you guys have seen this movie or not, but what do I mean by the big chunks? Well, we've got to decide what is the beginning, middle, and end of the essay. And so, in other words, and that's like, super basic, but this is like if Aristotle taught 3rd grade. So for the with debate essay that I just mentioned, essentially the chunks or the pieces are, she was shy, she joined debate, and she came out of her shell and learned some stuff. Oh, and by the way, developed a bunch of qualities that are going to serve her in her future career because she decided to mention it in her essay. So those 3 chunks: challenge, what I did about it, and what I learned. Okay, so if you're thinking about, if you face challenges in your life, one of the simple ways to outline your essay mentally is first third of the essay, what were the challenges I faced? Middle part of your essay, what did I do about it? And then the last part of your essay, what did I learn through the experience? And I know that's going to raise some questions for y'all, which I'm happy to cover in the Q&A at the end. Sorry if I'm not answering your questions right now. I'm trying to jam like 50 minutes of content into 30 minutes. That's why I'm going a little fast, but you can take it, right? And then these chunks for the endodontics essay are the different qualities or values that the author wants to show to the reader. Curiosity, good with hands, meticulous, helping others. What do these have to do with each other? Bring it together. All these qualities are going to serve me in my future as a dentist. Okay. Step 2. So step 1, that was kind of like the general advice. Step 2 depends on what type of essay you're writing. Okay. So again, we're in the structure section, assuming we've picked a topic that we like. Here's how to outline any essay in about 6 minutes. So if you face significant challenges and want to write about them, and you know what you want to study or do, in the future, and you want to write about them, the question is, how do you connect these two things? Okay. How do you connect the challenges to the future? And I think the answer is through your values. I told you I'd come back to them. Your values are those parts of you, those interests, those things that were forged in the fire. And there are many ways to do this, but one great exercise for this is what I call the feelings and needs exercise. And again, it'll be in the handout, or you can just Google it. It's free. All the resources on my site are free. You can just basically go through this exercise. It takes about 15 minutes. And it uses a tool called Nonviolent Communication to help you figure out, what was the experience I had? How did it impact me? How did I feel about that? And this is the nonviolent communication part. What were, based on the feelings that I was feeling, what did I need? And then what did I do about it to meet those needs in particular? And what did I learn through that experience, through the things that I did about it? That's like the 20-second version of it, but there's a little YouTube video that I walk you through that takes about 12 minutes. And you can basically, if you're trying to figure out like, is X challenge a good challenge to write about? Run it through this exercise. Some of you might be going, should I write about coronavirus? What do you think? Run it through this exercise and see what it yields. For some students, you know that your challenge is going to be like a great challenge to write about because it's really been a big part of your life. And you go through this exercise and you'll see a ton. Others of you will go through this and it'll be like a challenge like, I got a C in physics. And when you go through this exercise, you'll be like, well, I didn't really yield enough. It didn't really feel like my deepest story. So this is a great litmus test for, basically testing out a topic. That was redundant, I realize. A litmus test for testing. Yes, Ethan, that's what a test is for. If you haven't faced challenges, but you do have some sense of what you want to study in the future, another way that you can write your essay is to demonstrate through a series of paragraphs how you've developed qualities that will one day serve you in the future career. Important caveat about this structure. You don't have to 100% commit to this career for your entire life. It should probably match to some extent whatever major you're checking the box for. But what colleges are most interested in is not the ultimate career, but it's how you've developed this, like the skills and qualities and values. So how do you write that kind of essay? One way to do it is to reverse engineer your essay with the end in mind. So for example, this student that I knew once didn't quite know what he wanted to write about, but I asked him, what he was interested in doing. And he said he wanted to be an endodontist. And I asked him what that was. And once he explained it to me, I said, okay, well, what are some qualities of a great endodontist? And he listed these qualities here that I'm marking with my little arrow. And then I said, okay, well, do you have some examples of how you've developed those qualities? And he did. After 10, 15 minutes or so, he was able to identify. I mean, we were in a room and I was like on a whiteboard and I was like, all right, let's brainstorm this. So desire to help others. How have you helped others? And he's like, I don't know, math tutoring. I was like, that's good. He's like, but how does that have to do with what does that have to do with being a dentist? I was like, don't worry about it. Because I knew that once he had the qualities, if he could demonstrate the qualities, right, then we knew that he possessed those superpowers or skills. So when he got to the end and he said, that's why I want to be an endodontist. Yeah, because you're the guy who likes to help people, right? It's that value or that quality that is the connective tissue for this essay, okay? So you brainstorm the qualities first, and then give me some examples, some visual examples. Visual is better, I think, for this storytelling, especially if you're working in a page. Give me one scene. Almost imagine like each one is like a scene in a little movie. Show me the helping others scene. Show me the detail-focused scene. What does that look like? Not like a huge paragraph, but like give me a couple sentences. What does that look like? And then figure out what order do your scenes go in best. And that's what the part that takes some time to figure out. And then at some point in the structure, you're going to need to say, that's why I want to study such and such career. Heads up, if you name your career at the start and say, I want to be a doctor, and here's why, it might be kind of a boring essay because they probably read doctor essays. So I recommend with this structure that you don't immediately reveal what the career is, you wait. So if you imagine like your thesis is, I want to be a dentist, and here's why, save that for a little bit later. It makes it, I think it makes it a little more interesting movie to watch, right? It would be like, in this movie, the Avengers are going to da 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 da, right? That's, I don't think that this is like an English essay. I think this is more of creative nonfiction, where you show first and then tell. More on that later. Oh, and if you're trying to figure out what are some qualities that are great for a person in this career, if you go to this website, onetonline.org, also free, and you type in the top right corner in the occupation quick search, your potential career, like lawyer or whatever it is, you'll get a magical list of skills and abilities. Go up and click the, not the minus, but the plus, and all of these qualities will pop up, and you can just pick and choose. And it doesn't have to be like, you can also just use this and like type in entrepreneur, and there will be some other qualities that would be good to show. If you face challenges, but you're not sure how to end your essay, don't worry. You don't have to say, I want to go into a certain career. And by the way, I don't want you to take away from the session that you should say your career at the end of your essay. That is not true. Most students do not do that. And many students get into college without saying what their career is. I think though we should get some sense of, a clear sense of what you're going to be bringing with you to campus. And so I think you can end with your values. So rather than saying, I want to go into X career, you can say, I'm interested in, I know that no matter where I end up in life, family is going to be essential to me, whatever the other things are, my commitment to the environment and social justice, or whatever those things are. Now, do you have to name those explicitly? Not always, but it can be nice if it wasn't clear in the essay what those values were to sort of bring those home. I'm not suggesting that every student who should just name those values explicitly, but I think it should be clear by the end of your essay what those values are. And then here's the structure that I mentioned earlier. But if you bring the challenges in the first quarter, so like that's the first paragraph or two, what colleges are really interested in is less in terms of the challenge. They want to know what the challenges are in so much as it was a setup for, well, what did you do about it? And what did you learn? Because that's how we really get a sense of what you're made of. Okay. So it's not that they don't care about your challenges. Just think of them as setups. So when you write your first draft, if your challenges take up most of your word limit, that's okay. Just squish them up into the first like 200 to 300 words and make sure you're really thickening that. What did I do about it? What did I learn? The feelings and needs exercise that I mentioned is a great one to help you do that. But let's say you still, don't have challenges, don't know what you want to study, you're feeling totally adrift. Good luck. No, I'm kidding. First of all, be patient because it might take you a little bit longer to find your topic, okay? This is students who don't have those kind of, the options that we just discussed. They're like, again, don't worry. Here are a few options. So one thing you could do is you could just research different careers based on this resource, Do What You Are is one that I really love. You can get it for like $5 on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. And you can do a little Myers-Briggs personality assessment and you can research different careers. And then what that can do is once you see in the book the different careers, you can kind of look that up on ONET online, type it in, and you'll get a big list of qualities, okay? If you're feeling resistant to that because you're like, Ethan, that sounds like I'm committing to that career, or I don't want to do what everyone else is going to do, then don't do this. This is just one option. Another option is just to pick something that you really love or know a lot about. Like one student knew a lot about scrapbooking. And so her essay might have been, it actually was the scrapbook of her life. And each page showed some different aspect of like family and travel and her commitment to volunteer work, et cetera, et cetera. Another student really loved applied math. It's true. And in his essay, he used a paragraph, almost like, again, like scenes in his movie to show different sides of himself. Like applied math has shaped the way that I see architecture. It's also shaped the way that I see science. It's also shaped the way that I see relationships. And so each one of those paragraphs showed a different perspective, but all through the lens of applied math. And another student wrote about travel and languages. You can Google these: scrapbook essay, college essay guy, travel and languages, college essay guy. The applied math one isn't on my website, but the other ones are. And you'll see, and as you kind of see the blog post that those exist on, you'll see lots of other examples where students are writing about things that they really love. More ideas. What's a skill or superpower you have? A student that I worked with last year wrote about beatboxing. That's awesome. Another one wrote about, let me give you some others. Listening. It could also be it could be something that you do, like sort of like solving problems, or being able to take complex concepts and explain them in simple ways. So these are skills, superpowers. Another student wrote about parkour. That's kind of like, I don't know, if you don't know what that is, you can Google parkour. Another potential way is thinking about what's a way that you identify, or what are multiple ways you identify. So for example, one student in the past wrote about how she has kind of like a natural mom vibe. And she wrote that. She's like, apparently I have a natural mom vibe. And then wrote about how that vibe and that sort of quality in her of caretaking manifested in her team, with her volleyball team and with her family and with student council. And so you can use one identity or one way that you identify and show how it manifests in different areas of your life. Or you can use multiple ways. There was a student who, one of my favorite essays, if you Google LGBTQ essays, actually Google, should I come out in my college essay guy? There's a student who wrote an essay called This Is Me. And he identifies in so many different ways. I am Chinese, and I am Catholic, and I am Mexican. And he talks in this paragraph about different ways that he identifies. And the ending is sort of like, I am all of these things and more, all these intersectional identities. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's one of my favorite essays. So you can look at all those different ways that you identify and go, okay, cool. Well, I'm somewhere, in the intersection of all these different things, these influences. And one way to brainstorm that is thinking about what are the communities that you're a part of. I am part of the teaching community as Ethan. I am part of the beard having community. I probably wouldn't use that in my essay. You could also ask, where's home for you? I have many homes. I've got Latin America, where I grew up for part of my life. Los Angeles has become a kind of home for me. I'm also at home behind my laptop teaching. I'm at home leading workshops. I'm at home on the basketball court. All right, so you could pick one home. Like one student wrote about the weight room, and that was her home essay. Other students have used many, like I've just mentioned, and done a paragraph per home. Last resort, if you've got an extracurricular activity you've spent a lot of time doing, you could use that as a topic. But I wouldn't recommend using an extracurricular activity for your main personal statement for a few reasons. Number one, it's pretty common usually. So, most common topics are like sports, like, in common sports, basketball, football, tennis, cross country, or musical instruments like violin or, piano, flute, guitar, or mission trips, right? Or tutoring. So these are pretty common topics. And so I think that it's a lot harder to stand out with those. I'm not saying 100% you shouldn't do it, but a boring essay chooses a common topic, makes common connections, and uses common language. So common topic, basketball, common connections. It's taught me discipline, hard work, and perseverance. Common language, teamwork makes the dream work, right? Whereas an uncommon topic, like, beatboxing or something strange, could help you stand out more. Now, do you have to do that? No. You could write a basketball essay, but then you'd really want to make sure that the connections that you're making, in other words, not discipline, hard work, and perseverance, but tell me how basketball has taught you about privacy or about boundaries or about listening. That suddenly starts to become a more interesting idea. So if you do go extracurricular activity, and again, I think it's like a last resort, make sure that you're saying, you can kind of brainstorm for yourself, what is the cliche version of this essay, and then don't do that. All right. You might also just need more stuff to write about. And if you do, those exercises that I mentioned are great ones. And when you get the recording of this, you can screenshot this and Google these. Some other ways to generate ideas. If you didn't brainstorm with somebody, you might try it. And if you tried it with somebody and it didn't work, try somebody else. I mentioned Do What You Are. I didn't mention Use Science, which is a great website for doing a 90-minute interest and aptitudes assessment. It's pretty cheap. I think it's like $10 or $20. Don't quote me on that. But that's a great way of doing some like self-reflection. And then morning pages is like in the morning, just write 3 pages of freehand. And that's a great way to just get out of, sort of like what's happening in my brain. Oh, and don't rush through these. Even though I'm rushing through this presentation, don't rush through these brainstorming exercises because they're not like preparing to work. That's the actual work of the essay. So don't even think of these as pre-work. Think of these as like, I'm writing my essay. Once you're doing the 21 details exercise, you are doing your essay, okay? I have this famous quote that I like to quote, better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's, that's right. Your ingredients for your essay are going to be the brainstorm materials that you've created. The better those are, and the more time you spend brainstorming, the more likely you are to have a fine pizza or essay. Pizza essay. I won't spend long on this because this one's pretty straightforward. How do I revise my essay? Not that it's super easy to revise your essay, but here's one trick that I like. If you highlight all the sentences of the first paragraphs in bold and then read them aloud to yourself, you'll see, in this case, for example, this is the endodontics essay. As a kid, I was always curious, and it didn't stop in second grade. A few years later, I designed my first pair of shoes, working for hours to perfect each detail, including whether the laces should be mineral white or diamond white. You see how those kind of connect? And if you look at the rest of this essay, now this is not something that I told this student to do. I was just trying to help a student who emailed me and was like, hey, how do I make my essay flow? And I was like, whew, that's hard. And I went and looked at some past essays, and one of them, actually a few of them, I was like, oh my gosh, if you look at the first sentences, they kind of connect. This will not work for every single essay, okay? But it will help you figure out what are the bones of your essay, which is to say, is my essay flowing? Is the structure clear? The simple way that you can revise it, it's if you just Google this phrase, how to revise an essay in 5 steps, is to rewrite the sentences in bold first, make sure those flow, and then do whatever you need to do in the rest of the paragraphs to make those make sense. That's going to also help you with your any writing that you're doing for school. Mostly any. I don't like to say any. And yeah, that's where you'll find that. Okay, home stretch. How do I bring my essay to life, aka make it not boring? So mediocre advice that I've gotten in the past, or that I've given in the past, I'm trying to make it better. You might have heard, for example, choose a great opening. And you're like, what does that mean? What is a great opening, right? I want to know, did I skip this slide? Oh, I didn't. Can you begin with a problem that must be solved? Bring us in, right? Give us a challenge or something that we're like, a puzzle that we're trying to work out. Most movies that you love do this in the first scene. And in the first 15 minutes, they've done it in several ways. And each problem has gotten more and more interesting. And the big problem usually launches right around minute 15, between minute 15 and 20. That's like screenwriting structure. So check this one out. Here's a secret that no one in my family knows. I shot my brother when I was 6. Luckily, it was a BB gun. But to this day, my older brother, Jonathan, doesn't know who shot him. And I finally promised myself to confess this 11-year-old secret to him after I write this essay. You can Google that essay and read more. Yeah, it grabs your attention, right? You're like, what happened? You know, where is this headed? And that's what I think we're wanting to do, especially if you're doing a narrative challenges-based essay. For more, if you just Google how to begin a college essay, how to start a college essay at College Essay Guy, I've got bunches and bunches of things. Buffet, y'all, don't try to take this in right now, buffet. You might have also heard show, don't tell. That's not bad advice. I just think it's kind of incomplete for a college essay. What do I mean? I think we should show first and then tell. I mentioned this earlier. So for example, many nights you'll find me in the garage replacing a car's standard chrome trim with an elegant piano black finish, or changing the threads on the stitching of the seats to add a personal touch. Nice. So what are the values that I'm learning here? If we had more time and we were in person, I would ask you, but what do we learn here? So he's replacing a car's standard chrome trim. Okay, so he's kind of ambitious. He works on his own, which is cool. He's also interested in, details. He's good with his hands probably, but so what? Like, what am I supposed to take away from this? That's the key, I think, to standing out in your essay, is answering the question, so what? He does it in the next part. Check it out. As I believe a few small changes can transform a generic product into a personalized work of art. That last word, art, boom, we've got a new value. Now I see, cool. There's this whole other awareness that he has about, the power of just a few small tweaks and how the impact that can have, the way it can elevate a thing. In this case, it's car seats. The show demonstrates that you're a talented writer, I think. The tell demonstrates you're a critical thinker, and you can answer the question, so what? And I say, be both. Last one, write what you know. What does this mean? This always sends me into like an existential tailspin of like, what can ever truly be known? I say use geeky language. What do I mean by this? Well, quick example from that same essay. I'm the math geek who marvels at the fundamental theorems of calculus, or who sees beauty in whatever that says. It's Heron's formula, by the way. But then he does the so what thing. Again, it's in the details. One bracket off or one digit missing and the whole equation collapses. And details are more than details, so what again? They can mean the difference between negative and positive infinity, an impossible range of solutions. Okay, so there's a lot going on there, but he's given us that geeky language so we see that he knows what he's talking about, but it's not so much that it like really puts us off. right? And then he's so whatting so that we get insights into his perspective on this field, right? Math and why it's important to him. If you'd like some more brainstorming ideas, you can Google interesting questions and you'll see this big giant list of 100 brave and interesting questions. If you've got questions on any other part of the college application process, I put together this thing called the College Application Hub. Again, you can Google it. And it's like 50 different resources that tackle everything from, you know, how do I get good recommendation letters, to how do I make my activities list awesome, to what is demonstrated interest and why is it important and for whom, to pretty much any question that you have, financial aid, it's in the College Application Hub. So I will share with you a link to that shortly. This is an email where you can ask any questions you have, help@collegeessaguy.com. And that, my friends, is the 157th resource. We did it in about 33 minutes. This is the messiest Q&A slide, I apologize, but if you'd like to find the handout, again, you can just take your phone out and scan the QR code or go to that link at the top. And it's Q&A time, so you can ask me anything like, should I write about coronavirus or not? And when should I start? And if you're wondering about other resources for the college application process, see the College Application Hub that I just mentioned. There's also a link to that in the handout. That's what I got, Alex.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ethan. I know you had to kind of power through there and you did an excellent job. So, and the questions are piling up for you. So
can I just jam through these, Alex?
What?
Can I just jam through these?
Well, so I have some here that I thought like most commonly asked questions, and then as we're going through, if we have some extra time at the end, we can, you know, jam through some additional questions, you know. So just some basic ones that, you know, come across a lot. Are there any off-limit topics for essays, topics you shouldn't use as an essay?
Mm-hmm. So, and I'm going to loop this into the question that Michael Baxter is asking about common topics. Mm-hmm. So there's like a spectrum of shouldn't use topics. So I would say there's some obvious shouldn't use ones, like stuff like on criminal activity and like stuff that could be stigmatized. Probably don't write about like horrible things that you've done. I don't think the students are thinking of that. But in terms of like common topics, I wouldn't recommend things that lots of other students are writing about, like football, basketball, violin, mission trips. And I'm not saying that you 100% have to not do that, but I just think it's a lot harder to stand out. So that's my short answer to that question. You know, because students might ask, can we talk about coronavirus for one sec?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we've got plenty of questions on this. Go ahead.
Cool. So I have two thoughts about this. One is like, coronavirus is affecting all of us, right? And so if somebody like writing about it, it's probably going to be a somewhat common topic. So the advice I would give is, if you feel like what you've experienced over the last couple months has fundamentally changed your life, and you are like, this is your deepest story, and you want to do a narrative on that, then I would say go through the feelings and needs exercise and see if you can generate enough content to be like, yes, this is it for me. But if you feel like, you know, it's important, but it's only like a chapter in my life, you could use the montage structure and basically find another topic that shows different sides of who you are, based on something that you love or know a lot about, or a career, or whatever it is. And then have like the third or fifth paragraph be like, oh, and during the coronavirus epidemic, one of the things that I did was, and just give us a little insight into what was the value, skill, quality, or something that you connected with during that time, and make it one chapter in your life and then move on, right? So it doesn't have to define you. The other thing is the Common App is probably going to have a little section on their application. And by the way, if you don't know the Common App, it's this big application that you can check out. And a lot of the schools that you'll apply to, particularly privates, will be on the Common App. But they have this little section called the additional information section. And they're probably going to either tweak that section or add a little bit of like a coronavirus specific one, where you can ask yourself basically, is what I want to say about coronavirus, could I put it in there? If so, then you can devote your personal statement to something else. That's my quick version.
Thanks, Ethan. So just again, another similar question to, you know, your Q&A. When is the right time in high school to start writing an application for college, an application essay for college?
So I think it's junior year, once finals and everything are done. Like the summer after junior year is a sweet time. If you can get your personal statement in Common App, and any schools that you're thinking, like in developing your school list, done over the summer. And if you can develop your list, and then if you can get like the essays, this is bonus points for like one school done, that would be awesome. My hope is that students get as much done as they can over the summer, because y'all are just going to be so busy. I can't tell you how busy you're going to be in the fall. It's just bonkers. So try and take off as much as you can off your plate during the summer, especially if now your summer workload is a little bit less because your thing you were going to do over the summer is going to be, not happening now. I think summer is a great time to do it. So I don't recommend that students necessarily begin writing in 9th and 10th grade because a lot's going to change. Unless you just really love writing and want to learn about yourself, in which case go for it, write a billion essays because you'll learn a lot.
I'd be impressed if someone wrote a billion essays.
A billion, literally a billion essays.
All right, so I do have another question here, and a lot during this topic regarding what the structure of their essays, Sawyer and Montage Structure. So some people asking, what is Montage Structure?
We just broke up. Say that one more time. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Perhaps it's me. So some people are just wondering what structure is better, a narrative structure or a montage structure?
Neither is better. They're both completely awesome and totally useful. It'd be like picking which Avenger is better. It's like, well, I don't know. What are you trying to do? So just go into, I would say everybody should try a montage, even if you think you have a challenge, because I want you to have those multiple options. But neither one is, many students every year get in with narrative and montage.
Gotcha. All right. And then I have another question here. How can we properly apply humor in an essay, and what types of humor should we avoid?
I would say do it selectively. So in a 650 word essay, like if you've got 3 or 4 funny moments, that's enough. You don't need to have like 15. Okay. And I would say my favorite type of humor personally is irony, because it demonstrates your intelligence. And for an example essay, if you Google, I'm giving folks a lot of stuff to Google, Barbie versus terrorism and the patriarchy essay, you'll see a nice funny one. Or if you Google poop, animals, and the environment, there's another sample essay that you'll find that uses humor in a nice way. And you'll see that it's just like in a couple moments. But so I think it's really great, and especially great for students who are, have great GPAs and great test scores and really nothing to prove. They can be a little more laid back and kind of, as I like to say, like show up in jeans in your essay. I think humor is a nice way. But if this is not your strong suit, do not start now.
Oh, man. Okay, so, and just to remind everybody, because this question has popped up a lot, and you mentioned that, you're asking people to Google a lot of things. These videos will be recorded and are available on the Navigate 2020 website. So just a quick reminder, because Ethan, you gave a lot of people a lot of homework for everybody, so they have a lot of things to look up. So if you need to come back to this video, it will be available on the Navigate 2020 website. And just returning some questions we got here. How do you know if a story is too personal to write about for your essay? In regards, some people are asking in regards to mental illness, some in regards to disability.
Yeah, so a few thoughts on that. One is, it's all in the how. And the first thing, if it's, for example, something about mental health or disability, I would recommend talking to your counselor, if you've got connection to your counselor, and seeing if what they're writing in their counselor letter is already going to be in your application somewhere. And if so, could you put something in your additional information section that just briefly explains what it was, what you did about it, and what you learned, like briefly. So let's say, for example, you were out of school for 3 months because of whatever it is. And this goes for anything beyond even mental health, just explaining, illness, for example. You can just go, first bullet point, here's the literal like medical explanation, keep it short to a sentence, what I did or what happened. Here's what I did about it. Like I was able to get my assignment sent to me and I worked really hard. And then what I learned through the experience is the value of my community and reaching out for help, or whatever that short version is. And if you can get it to a short explanation, it's something that you can kind of handle in the additional information section. I think that's a really good way to handle it. When it comes to, again, it's so another way that I think about this is like, again, is this your deepest story? If you feel like this is the thing that has shaped you, you could do that feelings and needs exercise and try and figure out, is there a lot here? But the thing about mental health, unfortunately, just given the skyrocketing rates of anxiety in our culture, in our country, it's become a somewhat common topic. And so I encourage students to brainstorm other topics. Again, think sort of in that montage frame of like, what's a different thing that I know a lot about that could maybe show different sides of me? And then to explain whatever that thing is, that mental health thing in your, in your application, in your additional information section. Another question that I sometimes ask is like, must they know about this? And I mean that in the broad sense too. Like, is this something that feels like essential to you? And if so, then yeah, include it somewhere. But just so you know, you'll have that additional info option. And my quick advice is to like brainstorm other topics, see what you can find. If you feel like, no, this is the story I want to tell, feelings and needs.
Awesome. All right. Now I do have another question here. Sorry to just keep bringing them up to you one at a time, one after another. Keep knocking them out of the park. Any tips on how we can highlight what we love about ourselves without coming across as braggy or overconfident?
Yeah. Do all of the exercises that I mentioned. So essence, objects, 21 details, everything I want colleges to know about me. And once you've done all those, you're going to kind of look at all of your brainstorm work and be like, okay, there's some like interesting patterns here. When you come across something that that you feel like you want to brag about, ask yourself, is this something that I could put in my activities list or my awards and honors section and let that do the bragging for me? Because your job there is to brag with specific, basically like verbs, action verbs. Here are the different things that I've done through that activity, and brag, 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 brag. Okay, so it's almost like letting your parent brag for you, or letting your teacher brag for you. That's what your activities list is doing, because I want you all to relax to some extent in your personal statement and demonstrate things like core values, things like insight, like those so what moments, things like vulnerability. What is the essay personal? Those things I think are what's most important for your personal statement. But if you do feel like you need to brag and you want to weave it in, make sure you connect it to a value. So let's say you won a great competition and it was like really a huge deal in your area. Well, again, ask yourself, is it already coming through my activities list and maybe even in my counselor letter? So if I mention it again, is it going to be redundant? So do you want to just go, well, you know what? And then I did at this one competition, and you can even background that you won the competition and talk about what was the value or insight that you gained at that competition. And then it just happens to be in the backdrop of like, oh yeah, by the way, I totally won that competition or finished second in the state or whatever it is. So bring forth the value, the insight, the thing that you learned.
Okay. All right. Now I have a follow-up question here. Do you need to state what future career you're thinking of in your essay? And I know throughout your presentation you had mentioned this. You mind just returning back to it and explaining whether you think that talking about your future career or your future would be
I'm so glad you did. Even if there was one person wondering that still, I want to make it absolutely 100% clear to y'all. You do not have to talk about your career. You do not have to talk about your career to have a great essay. There are so many different options. It's just one option out of many. It's one of the ones that we had time to talk about today. So no need to mention your career.
Okay, so let me see what else I have for you here. Excuse me, let me see.
No worries.
How do we approach essays about personal events? Maybe sad without writing a sob story.
Yeah.
So something, again, topics on personal events, things like that.
Yeah, totally. So and if y'all want, you can go back to when you watch the recording, go back to the narrative section when I talk about the 3-step structure. So oftentimes a sob story ends up sounding like a sob story because if we imagine the whole essay here, it's like mostly challenges. And it's like, oh my gosh, this person has been through so much. If y'all can squish the challenges into the first third and then make a transition to talking about what you did about it and what you learned, then I'm learning, it's really the challenges are kept only in here in this section of your essay. And maybe there were so many challenges that you need a second paragraph to give more context, but then half of your essay is dedicated to how you metabolized the experience. In other words, how did you process it and help you learn skills, qualities, values that are going to serve you in college? Oftentimes, if you're writing about this for the first time, just be easy on yourself and just write. Don't worry about a word limit or anything like that. But then I'm going to ask you to try and squish it up. The other thing that students don't realize is that you don't have to put in all the details of what you went through. You can write about things there's so many ways to say, for example, one student that I worked with had experienced physical abuse. In her first draft, she talked about the physical abuse in detail and the blood on the floor. And it felt like it was kind of the trauma was happening again for her. And then for me as I was reading it. And so one of the things I said to her is I said, I think that the reader can get the essence of what you are talking about without the specifics, without all the specifics. And so she dialed it back. I said, what would be some other language that you could use here that you'd feel comfortable using to demonstrate that, yes, this was tough, but it wasn't, we don't sort of go, and we're left with these horrific images from the start of the essay. Make sure if you do that you don't create mysteries for the reader. So if you say, for example, when I was 11 years old, something so horrific happened to me that should never happen to any child, our brains are going to go crazy with possibilities and we're going to be like, oh my God, what horrible thing happened to this person? So don't create such a mystery that we come away only thinking about, great, cool essay, but what was that thing that happened? Okay, so make sure you give us enough information so that it's clear, but again, you don't have to go into all the details, and squish them into the top as much as you can.
Excellent. Okay, so we have time for just a couple more questions. Do those writing my college recommendations need to read my college essays?
They don't need to, but it's good information.
If someone's writing them a college recommendation.
Yeah, I think it's good information for them. They don't need to, but I mean, I'm a big fan, and you'll find this on that college application hub. There's like if you Google teacher recommendations college essay guy, you'll see like a big guide for like how to ask for those and when to ask for those and what to give the recommender. But I think it's cool. I mean, if I'm recommending a student, I want to know more about them. And oftentimes that personal statement, I like to see it so that I know that it's not necessarily redundant what I'm going to say about them, or that it's supporting that. So the other problem though is that you may not have your essay written by the time your recommender is doing it. So don't put pressure on yourself. Like, don't wait to finish your essay and then ask for your recommendation. You can ask for your recommendation earlier than that.
Excellent. And now if someone asking specifically about a montage style essay, they ask, how would you structure a montage essay? Like, it seems so random and a mess.
Mm-hmm. So what you need is you need a thematic thread, a theme. So there are some different ideas for that. It could be something that you know or love, right? So it's like, I know a lot about beatboxing, and you take beatboxing, whatever it is, and then you go, you draw a circle. Here's how to brainstorm a montage essay in 45 seconds. So beatboxing, let's see, that's the thing I know a lot about. But you know what? You're probably looking at that being like, I don't know anything about beatboxing. Give me something easier. Okay, here's something that I know a lot about that I love, games. Okay, I don't know if you're gonna be able to read this, so I'll switch pens for a second. So games. So once you've got your thing up, I want you to create one of those old, brainstorming things that you used to create in like 6th grade. And you basically create all these circles. And then you see how many values you can connect it to. And by values exercise, college essay guy, I'm talking about things like family. Because I could totally connect games to family and talk about like what I learned about family and about them. Connection is another thing that just popped into my head. Connection. One of the things that I mentioned, my essence objects, the game I mentioned, is this cool game that really facilitates connection. But it's different, it's a little bit different from the family paragraph. And then I could talk about, I've learned a lot of stuff. So I'm gonna put like knowledge as a value, because I feel like it's one of the best ways to learn stuff. So what I'm doing, first of all, I'm testing my topic. Is games gonna be a great topic for me? I think so, because I'm with enthusiasm. The fire alarm's going off. I think we're burning a pizza in the background. We've got, if I run out, that's because the pizza is truly burning. Gotcha. Family, connection, and knowledge. Those are values, each of which I could write a paragraph on. But what's going to connect my whole essay is going to be that theme or thread. And so some different themes or threads, again, things you know a lot about or love, could be a career that you're interested in. It could be an identity that you possess, like, I am introverted and here's how that has shaped me in many ways. Could be a place that you find home. So in that section, when I was going through like the type D essay for different ways that you can find your topic, those are different potential thematic threads, things that you could write at the top, and then see how many values you can connect it to. If you can connect it to a bunch of them, it could be a good topic.
All right. Well, unfortunately, that is all the time that we have today. That concludes our expert presentation on tips for writing successful college application essay. Remember that you can come back to the event page at any time to watch the recordings. They will be available there. As Ethan did a wonderful job presenting. He gave a lot of good information. So if you want to go back and rewatch this, it will be on the event page. It might not be on exactly after this, but it will be on shortly after. Now, just a couple of other things to be known, everyone who's still in attendance here. Exploring your college options in our virtual college fair. We have hundreds of interactive virtual booths where you can watch videos, download materials, and even chat live with administrative representatives from the institution. You'll also find that some booths have scheduled their own live stream video presentations, so make sure you visit those today or come back while the event is still live to enjoy those experiences. That is all the time that we have today. We apologize if we could not get to all of your questions, but Ethan, thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And I know the audience would be giving you a big round of applause if they could talk to us right now.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it.
So once again, thank you so much for your time. And I hope you have a nice evening.
Cool. Thanks.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.